Welcome to Building Blocks of a Winning Proposal. I'm Judy Bratt, CEO of Summit Insight, and it is my pleasure and joy to be bringing this class to you. Participation. If you're here live being part of the making of this new recording, please make use of the chat box. You can raise a hand, come off mute if you've got live questions, and there'll be some parts of this training where we'll be having conversations. So by all means, chime in, ask your questions, and you can always book a follow-up call with either of us, and there's information on how to do that at the end. Get out your notebook. You're going to be taking action, and at the end of each of our 2 segments, we're going to ask you, what are you committing to do, and by when, as a result of what you've learned in this segment of the training. So, Eileen, I'm going to turn this over to you. Eileen Kent is a federal sales Sherpa, and she's doing this training specifically sharing. It comes out of her experiences in winning over $65 million in federal contracts. And at the end of that experience, she said, what are the things that could make a difference for other people? And this training, Building Blocks of a Winning Proposal, came out of that experience and many more years, helping hundreds of companies to millions of dollars of success in the federal market. Eileen Kent, Federal Sales Sherpa, my training partner and my friend.
Thank you very much for having me, Judy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Judy, I'm going to go over to the materials, if that's all right, everybody. Is this the point where we would pop over and share?
Just if you want to go over,
just cover the overview.
The table of contents. We'll make sure everybody is open, and then we'll be able to pop over. So if you want to do the overview of what it is that we're covering, then we'll be good to go.
Sounds good. Well, as you can see today on part 1, it's going to be kind of a fun class, because when we do part 2 a little bit later, which is our second 2 hours, which we'll be having a little bit later, we'll be really digging into the proposal itself and talking a little bit about how it's put together and how to manage it, etc. Today is going to be critical building blocks, which are the steps that are going to happen before the proposal is even written. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk a little bit about the rules. We're going to talk about the secret embedded block, which is the win theme, bid, no bid description, and then we're going to talk about organizing the response before the bid even comes out. So today is mostly about strategy, these first 2 hours that we're covering. So I'm very excited about getting started. You have a Word document that's been provided to you, so feel free to open it and then enable editing and leave it on your desktop. And then if you want to, you can either listen to this meeting and follow on yours and take your own copious notes. It's a Word document, so you're able to modify it a bit. We made this program, the document that we did, as a Word document, because you're writing proposals. You're going to need parts and pieces of this to build proposals in the future. And if we did this in a PowerPoint, then you'd have to kind of reformat everything. And this will be easy for you to use it as a tool, because there's lots of tools inside this document. So at this point, Judy, if you could give me a chance to share my screen, if you offer the opportunity for multiple people to share. There we go. I'm going to open up my document here. So this is the document that we're working with today, the Building Blocks of a Winning Proposal. And my hope is that you can see it. I'm pretty sure you can. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on it and start scrolling down a little bit. I got to move the video over just so I can reach my scroll bar. Just one second. I'm moving the video over and going to my scroll bar. Okay, so I'm just scrolling down, and I want to start. You have this full outline. We're going to be covering building blocks 1 through 5 during part 1 today, and then we'll cover all the rest the next time we meet on part 2. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, as Judy would call them, and we call them when we do our federal sales action plan work together, we call it the layers and the players technique. And the concept here is there are several people that are going to be part of the decision-making process, and we want to make sure that we know who they are, we know what their goals, hopes, dreams, desires are, and we'd like to talk a little bit about that for now. So the first group of people are the people inside the contracting office. So when you get an RFP or an RFI or an RFQ, you're going to see somebody called the point of contact. And you might see one is the contracting specialist and the other is the contracting officer. And contracting specialist is a person that's responsible for posting the bid up at the public bid sites or inside GSA, or they're sending it to you via an email. They want some sort of information from you. They're trying to make sure that they're going to get as many vendors to respond as possible so that they can make sure that the file shows that fair and open competition has occurred. And as we all know, fair and open competition, which is kind of the number one rule in the federal acquisition regulation, it's kind of like the thou shalt not kill part of this Bible that they follow. Fair and open competition. They have to prove in the file that they've invited the right number of companies, and if they only sole sourced it or gave it to one company, they have to justify why they only invited one company. So these people are inside this contracting office that they post the opportunity, and the contract specialist, the very first person that's usually listed on there, is making sure that the proposals provided were first of all sent in on time. All the parts and pieces have been included. It's in the right font. It has all the right attachments in the proper order. And if there's anything that's off on that proposal, it never even makes it into the evaluation committee. So the technical people will never see your proposal if you don't pass muster with that contracting specialist. The contracting specialist also has to answer all of the public questions about the proposal. They manage that. And then once that all the FAR rules and the process is approved, they kind of hand it over to the contracting officer to make sure that they follow protocol properly. And they're kind of within this FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation rule book that they have to follow. But as you'll see, as you're selling to the federal government, every single contracting officer, every single contracting office does things a little bit differently. They interpret the FAR rules a little bit differently. They are trying to follow the public law, and if they don't follow it, auditors are over their shoulders, watching what they're doing and evaluating them and their processes. And tiger teams are on top of the auditors, on top of the contracting team members, making sure that the FAR is followed. They're saying that they're protecting the contracting team, but really they're protecting the agency to make sure everything's followed. And if they still don't follow the rules, they could get in some trouble and potentially be prosecuted and go to jail if they do anything inappropriate. So they're really kind of prickly and nervous about when a proposal hits the streets, about how they behave, how they handle questions. If you notice when you're working with contracting officers and contracting specialists, they kind of go into a monotone voice. They try to answer questions very professionally in writing. Once the bid hits the streets, they have to follow those protocols. So they kind of put their game face in. You know, you don't get to know them that well when the bid's out. So our hope is that you've gotten to know them before the bid came out. And maybe they walked you through a typical proposal, or you looked at old proposals that they posted before to see how they do things and how they make decisions. Maybe you wrote a couple of proposals for them in the past and lost. I want you to keep those proposals and go through them and write copious notes about what their nitpicks are, because every contracting office is ever so slightly different. And I want you to learn and evolve your proposal writing process as you're working with them. So you have the people inside contracting following the FAR rules, making sure that fair and open competition. They have protocols, they have ways that they post things, they have preferences. Sometimes they like to put things out on the public bid sites, which now is sam.gov, under the contracting opportunities section of sam.gov, or they might throw it inside a contracting vehicle like GSA Schedule or Health and Human Services SDVOSB, or maybe through the VA's, formulary contract vehicles. They might keep it under the radar and only do small business set-asides because they probably already have a couple they have in mind that they know can do the work. So sometimes they're going to contact you for marketing purposes only, just gathering information from you. Simple requests for information, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But they're all about following the protocols. And I want you to picture that they're kind of, their hands are tied by the federal acquisition regulation when the bid is out. They can't talk to you about the details of the opportunity. The only way they can do that is through formal Q&A, and then they post it, and then you respond to them that way. But when there isn't a bid on the street, they might be able to talk to you about their preferences, their protocols, the way they like to buy things. You can look at old data on old contracts to see what they've done in the past and see what they prefer. And then you have the small business officer that's usually tied to the contracting office. They're really trying to make sure that the agency is meeting their small business goals. So if you're a large business and you're writing a proposal, and it's a large contract, over $500,000, over $750,000, over $1 million, they might be asking you for a small business plan as part of the proposal because they want to see pieces of it go to small, 8A, hub zone, woman-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, disadvantaged, tribal companies. So they might ask you for a piece of that proposal to go to those organizations. And the Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization Officer, or what we would call the OSDBU, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, they're responsible for holding the primes accountable for meeting those goals. At the same time, they're also holding the agency responsible for meeting their own goals. So they do a lot of events, outreach, trying to talk to as many small businesses as possible to get their capability statements, get their information. Now, do they influence a purchase? A lot of people have a bit of a debate about that. The largest think the small business officer is constantly saying, make sure it's small, make sure it's small. And the small businesses are saying the small business officer isn't pushing us enough. And what we like to say, Judy and I like to say, is the small business officer is there to manage the small business contracts, there to track the numbers, there to introduce the primes to the small businesses, there to get the contracting officers to maybe consider 8A, hub zone, woman-owned first before they publish it as a public bid for anybody, small and large. So they're trying to show the SBA that they're performing a good faith effort. So there's a lot of paperwork involved in that, but I gotta tell you, they're not typically the one that's going to be going to your most important customer, your VIP, who is the end user. Okay, the end user is the person. Let's say, for example, you're selling IT to the federal government. They're your CIO, your CTO, your chief security officer, your program manager, your project manager. If you're in the facilities world, it might be facility manager, engineering, installation support, energy director, construction manager. So it might be a facilities person. If you're doing training, it might be some sort of training management services person or human resources, human capital. These end users cannot purchase anything. If they have a credit card, they might be able to purchase small things if you're selling products under a certain dollar amount. But typically, if there's a larger proposal opportunity like 25,000 or more, they kind of have to throw it over the wall. That's what they call it. Send it over to contracting. This end user and the end user team is going to be in the evaluation committee reviewing your technical. And if they don't know who you are, you could have the best solution in the world, but they've never talked to you, they've never heard of you. They may or may not grade your evaluation as high as someone they already know. So the end users are the people that we really need to talk to as often as possible, as early as possible before a bid ever hits the street. And so the end user has a huge influence on who is going to win the bid. The stakeholder is the base commander the regional director, usually someone in a high-ranking position that all they care about is mission. Mission, mission, mission. Now, sometimes they're in the evaluation committee because it might affect their personal offices, this decision, or it might be such a big decision that it's going to turn the direction of the mission. So they might be involved, or someone in their office might be involved in the evaluation committee. But knowing who that stakeholder is and where they lie their preferences in terms of incumbents or current vendors or buddies that they know, trust, and love, their vote might be important inside that evaluation committee as well. Also, typically inside an evaluation committee, in our layers and the players, there's someone new that you might not have heard of if you've been to some of our other training that Judy and I have offered. This person's called the outside leveler. Sometimes there's a committee that has nothing to do with the program office. This is usually when the proposal is gigantic. It's a huge RFP for an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. Let's say, for example, right now, this is kind of dating us right now, but during this training, everybody's talking about HHS's CIOSP3 contract. It's a huge IDIQ. It's going to be 10 years, and it's going to be up to $50 billion will be able to be going across this contract. And it's a huge opportunity. So typically in a bigger type of opportunity like that, it's not down to the task level yet. They bring in stakeholders or levelers in that committee, which is a committee of people that don't know anybody personally, but they know the general need for the project. They might be part of the end users, but they're bringing in other levelers to keep everybody honest, basically. But just to tell you, if it's based on a task order, let's say you're already got that contract vehicle and you're up against 3 other companies on a task order and it's an RFQ instead of an RFP, the end users are going to be in that evaluation committee, probably someone from the stakeholder and some sort of leveler. And that leveler, just imagine, is probably someone who's either a buddy of the stakeholder or a buddy of the end user, and that end user was on one of their purchase committees or on the stakeholders purchase. It's a director down the hall that has nothing to do with it. Maybe they've been on each other's committees, and they probably aren't going to be that invested in the whole process because they're not going to end up working with you. They're going to help make the decision and make sure everything's going copacetic, and within the rules. But they're also going to kind of lean toward whomever that end user that brought them in or the stakeholder. So we need to know and have a relationship with all these people before we write a proposal. It's critically important. And so these relationships are very important. And we also need to know each and every person, their hopes, their dreams, their desires, their goals, what they're afraid of going wrong, because that needs to be addressed in your proposal. We call it the elephant in the room, and we'll be talking about it later. For example, if you're a small business and they've never worked with you before, but they've met you, and you're teaming with the incumbent, you're going to have to address as the prime working with the incumbent, hey, you've never worked with us before, but address the elephant in the room. But we're teaming with the incumbent who has worked with you before. So always try to uncover all these layers and players, what their preferences are, who they prefer, who they've worked with before, and what they're afraid of going wrong, because we're going to have to address all these things in our proposal. So one of the things I always like to do is kind of map our own team members to the evaluation committee members. So our owner, CEO of our company, the top managers should definitely know the stakeholder because they speak in visionary terms. So if you have a chance to get the CEO or the owner of your company sitting down with the stakeholder talking about things that are coming, that's great. Your proposal writers need to know who the contracting officer, who the contracting specialist is. Hopefully they've written proposals for them in the past. So your proposal person needs to know these people, hopefully their protocols, etc. Your technical writers are your internal program and project managers, your internal delivery people. My hope for you is that your technical writers and your project managers know the end user, know the end user's team. Maybe they got together and started to talk about what these needs were going to be 6 months ago, a year ago. Maybe you had a capabilities briefing, and then you featured one of your program and project managers or one of your subject matter experts. And then they had a sidebar conversation after that capabilities briefing. And it turns out they went to the same college, or they knew each other, or whatever it might be, they connected and they speak the same language. My hope for you is your program managers, your project managers, your technical writers already know the end users on the inside so that they're speaking the same language. Your salespeople is the connector. They're the connector. They're the person that hopefully got in there so early that they connected your CEO with the stakeholder over there. They connected the proposal manager with the contracting team to make sure that you understand the protocols, who connected the technical team with their subject matter experts on the inside and end users, that they're all speaking the same language. My hope is the salesperson pulled everybody together. That's the goal for them. And then I also want to talk about your people that are around after the bid or after the contract is won. We're going to have contract managers and billing executives that know the protocol of how the contract is managed, invoiced, paid, milestones. Have you seen in some bids in the past where it says on the bid, you must have past performance with this agency. We plan to work with a vendor that's worked with our agency in the past so we can save time and money on the contracting side, so they know they have intimate knowledge of how we handle our reporting systems, our billing systems. And they mention the systems. So your billing people, your accounts receivable and invoicing team needs to know the protocols. And that's where it gets really difficult when you're a newbie coming in, or you're a new vendor working with a new agency. You're kind of be going through the bumps of getting the billing correct and getting payment correct. But after all those bumps happen, our hope is now you're an incumbent, and in the future, they're able to easily justify why because your contracts manager and your billing team members made friends and know the protocols of how the billing happens on the back end. There's probably electronic billings, there's all kinds of system connection, all that EDI stuff going on. Now, also, if you're in something that we would call environmental or in the facilities world, you might have to have a sustainability officer on your team helping to report the sustainability of the project that's happening. So if you're doing construction, or you're doing reconstruction of a building, or you're going in and adding HVAC or new lighting, something like that, the issue here is you might need a sustainability officer that what we would call them to be LEED certified. It's kind of a certification for sustainability. You might need to have that kind of person on your team to connect with the need. There's also security officers if there's a facilities security clearance issue that you might have. You might have to have someone, the project manager on your team, know who the contracting officer technical representative is on theirs, which is usually the end user, making sure you're setting your reports right. So all these people need to be connecting and mapping to one another. And it's up to your sales team to make that happen. If it's not happening and you don't know any of these people, then we're going to be talking about whether or not it's worth building and bidding on this opportunity. So the next part is knowing a little bit about the alphabet soup that's out there. And there's some changes in the industry that have happened recently that I want to share with you. The first one I want to share with you is, of course, we've got the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR, and the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation. You can easily Google any FAR rule. One of the FAR rules I want to point out for those of you that are the salespeople trying to figure out how you're going to connect people before the bid. There's a rule that supports you. It's called FAR 15.201. FAR 15.201 basically says this: contracting officers and program managers and project managers, you're encouraged to meet with industry about innovation. I want you to think about that for a minute. I want you to take a note for yourself. Is there anything that we do or that we have that's innovative? The word innovation is your key word to try to get them to open the door and at least have a conversation with you. A lot of times they say, oh, I'm not allowed to talk to you right now. Well, if there's not a bid on the street for what you do, they actually are allowed to talk to you. But it's up to you to come up with a compelling enough reason for them to actually lower their guard and have a conversation with you. And using the word innovation, innovative, new ways to do X, to supply Y. Make sure you communicate that in your first sales calls, because that might unlock the door to being able to get in with that agency. So the FAR rules are there. We've given you a link to it in the book. They're there for you so that you can refer to them. In the old days, you'd have to actually buy a copy of the FAR rules, and it would practically fill a credenza. It was like, I don't know, 1,600 pages or so. And then they would add supplements to it, and you'd have to buy the supplements. It would be subscriptions, and it would be, I don't know, $1,200 a year or something. Now it's all Google searchable. It's easy to find the rules and pick them apart. Now, if you read some of these rules, you think that they're really nitpicky when you read them for the first time, but then when you start to kind of peel them apart, you realize, gosh, you could drive a truck through some of these rules. So that's why understanding the interpretation of the contracting officer is critically important. Is understanding their interpretation of the FAR rules will help you be able to modify and quickly evolve your proposal process and your sales process to that particular contracting officer and team, and making sure that we're following their protocols there. Which I also wanted to share with you a little protocol thing, number 2 here, the CO versus the KO. The CO versus the KO is the contracting officer, CO. Sometimes on base is the commanding officer. On naval bases, the CO might be commanding officer. So they nickname the contracting team members KO. So they also have a little framed document on their wall. It's called a warrant. And that warrant allows them to spend a certain dollar amount on behalf of the U.S. government. So if anybody ever calls you and says, I'm the warranted KO, don't freak out. You're not getting arrested. It's not the MPs. It's the contracting officer trying to get you to heal. So they come in a little bit serious to ask some clarifying questions. I'm the warranted KO. I have some clarifying questions. Okay. So they get you to behave right away. It's kind of their little power play, but just understand it's just contracting. So that's a little nickname for contracting. Number 3, I want to talk a little bit about RFIs versus sources sought. RFIs are requests for information. Right now, you're probably seeing a little more of these showing up at sam.gov under the contracting opportunities area, as well as in the GSA's eBuy. That's their internal buying site, RFIs versus sources sought. I want to talk about them a little bit because RFIs are pretty easy to fill out. They're usually 10 pages or less. Might include asking you to send in your capability statement, and they might want to get your feedback on a situation that they're running into or a problem they're trying to solve. And what I like to say is there's actually 3 reasons why RFIs are put out there. Number 1 is they have a small business that they want to work with, or 8A, or HubZone, or Woman-Owned. or service disabled vet or veteran owned. One company they want to work with, and they're looking for at least a couple more so that they can justify setting it aside for that small business designation. So they do a call out saying, hey, anybody out there that's 8A or HubZone or woman owned, if you see that, assume they already have one company they have in mind. Okay. If they find that the responses that they get, they don't have capable companies that do this kind of work, they're not going to set it aside. They need at least two. They call it rule of two. Okay, so that's one way. And if they don't get two that show that they're capable, for example, if it were a construction project, one of their big nitpicks when they're looking for smalls is bonding capacity. A lot of small businesses can only go up a certain dollar amount. And if an 8A maybe has been in the program 7 or 8, like right at the cusp of getting large, or about to graduate, they might have strong bonding capacity, but it's hard to find another company that's an 8A that has, unlimited bonding or something big like that for a huge project. So they need to find somebody else in order to set it aside for that small business or that type of small business. So RFIs are thrown out there into the public saying, anybody out there, Ali oxen free. Another reason why they'll do an RFI is they have a large business in mind. And the small business officers thrown up a red flag and said, at least contracting officers, at least post the opportunity for smalls to fill our files with, is anybody out there small who does this kind of work? And if they're able to justify that nobody has the capability, let's say it's NASA and they want to be able to, build a new shuttle or something like that, build a new spacecraft. Well, I imagine that they're not going to probably pick a small business for something like that. They're probably going to pick a large business, and then the large business is going to have a small business subcontracting plan. But the small business officer might say, well, at least put it out there for a day or two, get some responses. We see nobody has the capability, and then they put it out as no set aside. So they're trying to fulfill good faith effort with these RFIs. Another reason, and it's kind of along with the small business thing, GSA, the General Services Administration, has salespeople on their team. They're called customer service directors. Their job is to get the agencies to start using GSA more often instead of creating bids on SAM.gov that are public. And what they're doing is they're outreaching to the contracting officers. And they're saying to the contracting officers, hey, why are you posting this publicly? Like, for example, just today, the FBI put out an RFI for an IDIQ for doing some IT work at the FBI. I imagine GSA is going to be all over that. They're going to send their salespeople and say, why are you doing this publicly? Why are you creating your own IDIQ when we have 4,400 vendors on GSA schedule and IT who could at least respond to this? Well, what happens is the buyer will say, I don't want to use GSA. I don't think you have enough capable vendors. So then GSA comes back with, why don't you let us put an RFI on GSA's eBuy, their internal bidding site, and we're going to do just a quick Q&A and see how many companies respond. So what's happening on your end is you're seeing more and more RFIs because those customer service directors are walking in with 80 responses, 100 responses, and saying to the contracting officer, don't tell me that we don't have capable vendors. Here's 80 to choose from. Why don't you use our contract vehicle instead of build your own? So they're really doing a stronger sales push to take IDIQs off the street and be able to run them through GSA instead. And they're calling them blanket purchase agreements, which we'll talk about in a minute. They're trying to create these little just 3 bids and done, make it easy for you. So that's another reason why you're seeing RFIs a little more often. But also the third reason for RFIs and sources sought is there might be a situation that's very public, very public. Public's watching it. Let's say, for example, California fires. I'm just throwing it out there. Let's say that this summer there will be a lot of fires going on, and all of a sudden every vendor is approaching the Department of Interior and the Forestry Service, and they're all over them. The National Park Services, they're all over them. And they already have their vendors. They're already responding to this emergency. And the easiest way to bat away all those phone calls is to post the sources sought. Hey, does anybody have any technology to help us with the fires? And so what they can do is just point people to that sources sought, and they can continue working with their incumbents, focused on responding to the emergency, while everybody else is filling their good faith effort file, proving they shopped. And then I just have one more thought regarding RFIs and sources sought. Sometimes they put out there, we're struggling with a problem. Let's see what industry says about it. They're looking for ideas to steal so that they can build it themselves. So what I say to you on that is, when you fill out an RFI, show them your candy, don't spill it. So don't answer their technical questions on how to solve a problem, because they just might take that information and run with it. This is classic for like people who are in public relations and they have an idea for a messaging, and all these advertising agencies come in with all these ideas, and now they can take the ideas and build them themselves. It happens all the time. So what I say is, share your capabilities, share and show them your candy. Don't spill it. So don't give away the secret sauce of what you can do to fix that problem, because they might just take it and incorporate it internally. You'll probably be able to read between the lines on those RFIs on what they're fishing for. So RFIs is a great way to, it's actually, to me, when I see an RFI or a sources sought, I respond to it, but I don't call that person, because the person there will say, don't call me, just send in your RFI. I try to find the end users behind the story. What's happening? Because the door is still open. The RFP is not out yet. The RFQ is not out yet. The door is open. They're not in blackout period. So I try to find the end users to find out what's going on behind the scenes with the sources sought, with the RFI. They might just say, oh, we're just putting that out there to deflect, but we really want to work with you. So keep an eye out for us. That's if you have the relationship, right? So RFQ, our next number 4, our next little acronym in the alphabet soup world, RFQ versus RFP. So the RFQ is request for quote, and an RFP is a request for proposal. So usually a quote is when they already have a contract vehicle. So a GSA schedule or an IDIQ of some sort, indefinite delivery contract vehicle, a bridge already built. And they're looking for 3 companies to respond to this particular task or this particular need. The technical is specific. The bid is not as extensive as a giant request for proposal. It's maybe 25 pages rather than 250 pages. Or maybe it's 250 pages instead of 1,000 pages, depending on what your business is. So it's a smaller need. The turnaround is faster. The ability to award is quicker. And they might already have your basic pricing, like on GSA, they have your basic pricing, but they're asking you for a particular task and they're hoping that you'll give them a further discount, or you look at the situation, you create a good budget. So an RFQ usually includes, standard form 1449, an executive summary, 3 past performances, couple references, and then the technical, and then pricing, and you're done. It's usually pretty quick. But an RFP is something that's out on the public bid site, sam.gov. It might take 30 to 269 days to award. It's very, very public. Everybody can see it, and it's much more extensive. So construction companies are probably going to see things in an RFP form publicly, because construction is a custom situation. It might be out to bid publicly for a huge new building to be built, or it might be for a specific indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract that they're going to have, like CIOSB for, or a multiple award task order contract, that's construction, that they're going to say, okay, we're putting this out every 5 years. We're going to shortlist, 6 to 200 vendors, tighten up the list, but we're going to put it out publicly. And then we're going to tighten up our award winners. And only those award winners after that can bid on tasks and RFQs and technicals after that. So those bids are a much bigger, much more expensive, much more time-consuming RFP process. Today, when we're talking about bids, we're going to talk about both RFQs and RFPs. Just one is a little bit shorter than the other. One has less parts and pieces than the other. And I'm sure most of you have already responded to a couple of them, so you've experienced some of them. So I want to talk a little bit about GSA or GWACs, multiple award schedules or contracts. I'm going to change this little word Seaport E to Seaport NXG, which is a contract vehicle, SOUP, which is a NASA contract vehicle, CIOSP 3 or 4 coming up in the next year or so. So GSA is the General Services Administration. It's an agency of the government that puts an RFP out there. It's available anytime for bidders to come in and present their past performance, their commercial price list, their capabilities, their references, and past performance to prove that they're good at what they do. And then GSA negotiates and wrangles with them pricing for their hourly rates or for their individual items that they're selling, okay, down to the one. And what they do is they have a contract we call a contract bridge. They call them contract vehicles, but I like to use the analogy of a bridge. They've created this multiple award schedule or contract, MAC or MAS, is GSA MAS, multiple award schedule. It's a giant bridge with a lot of lanes on it. There's a lane for IT services. There's a lane for IT products. There's a lane for furniture. There's a lane for marketing. There's a lane for HR services. There's a lane for training. There's a lane for software. There's a lane for consulting. There's a lane for energy. There's a lane for environmental. So there's hundreds of lanes on this bridge. And your company, if you have this bridge available, which usually takes about a year to get awarded, you're going to be assigned these lanes. And you're going to have a number of competitors that have access to these lanes as well. And when a bid comes out, it's going to be pointed in eBuy to companies that are on the same lane as you. So if you're on IT services lane, 54151S, I think is the services one now, which used to be 13251 in the old days on IT 70. So this lane, right, only among the 4,400 vendors that are on that lane can bid on the opportunity if they posted at eBuy. So if you're on the environmental services lane, only the companies on the environmental services lane can bid on a certain opportunity when the contracting officer uses that. So we call these contract vehicles bridges. GSA is available. It's a multiple award schedule because it's available to every agency, every base, World Bank, Congress, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America, and in some of the lanes, state and local can use it as well. Anybody can use it during a disaster, which this last year during the pandemic, a lot of people use the GSA schedule. A lot of state and locals use the GSA schedule to buy products and services because we were in a national emergency. So there's GSA. Okay, this contract vehicle is open anytime. The RFP is out on sam.gov and available anytime to bid on. So there's not an onboarding time and offboarding. You can get on it or off at any time. There are 5-year contracts. There are options. There are 5-year options up to 20 years. So it's repeated four times, and it's about a 20-year contract. They call it an evergreen contract because it can be as long as 20 years. So that's the GSA schedule. Anybody can use it. Now, GSA also created some IT contracts. They're called government-wide acquisition contracts, GWAC. So if you've heard of OASIS, 8A STARS, VETS 2, coming down the pipeline is Polaris, which is, I think, is going to be for small woman-owned and hub-zone companies, and what they call the BIC-MAC, Best in Class Multiple Award Contract. And they're going to use these two contract vehicles. There's onboarding times every 5 years and offboarding times every 5 years. These contracts that are coming, the BIC-MAC as well as the Polaris, they're really going to be picky about past performance and what your ratings are in the CPAR system, which is sam.gov, has an evaluation system where if you have past performance, the contracting officers can give you grades. And so they're going to lean on those grades in order to award this. So what they're doing is they've got the GSA schedules, but they also have the BIC-MAC and the Polaris available for higher end vendors that have more experience with the federal government. So instead of using GSA schedule, a contracting officer might use one of the government-wide acquisition contracts, GWACs. Again, OASIS, 8A STARS, VETS 2, HCATS, which is Human Capital and Training, as well as Polaris and BIC-MAC coming, all right? So then you have competitor contract bridges. The Navy has Seaport NXG, NASA has STOOP, and HHS has CIO SP4. There's other ones called CHESS and other ones out there the Army has. So these are other bridges that the buyers can use to get to you. If you have this bridge available to you, your bidding process is going to be easier because it's an RFQ, a task order proposal for a specific opportunity. So smaller, easier, faster to do. Now, IDIQs are indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts, number 6 we're covering. These are usually tied around services. And when an agency says, I don't want to use GSA, I don't want to use any of the GWACs, I don't want to use any of the other multiple award contracts, I want to create my own bridge and pick 5 or 6 vendors. For example, the Army Corps of Engineers, in each of their districts, they have multiple award task order contracts with construction companies. So they have their stable of construction companies. So every 5 years or so, they put an RFP out for an IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. What that means is they don't know what projects are going to be used. They just want to establish a number of vendors to have a short list to only receive task order and task order proposals and RFQs. After that, it's easy, it's faster, it's quicker. They have their short list. BPAs is a blanket purchase agreement. BPAs are when you have a GSA schedule and the buyer can immediately create a new bridge called the blanket purchase agreement using the terms and conditions of the GSA schedule. So it's like, copy that bridge, paste it, and then they have a BPA with you and they put money behind it. So whenever you hear your customer talk about considering a BPA to work with you, I gotta tell you that's gold. Because what they'll do is they'll put money behind it, 25, 50 grand, and then every time they use you, they're gonna refill it and refill it and refill it. This is usually used for small tasks like training programs or orders that are less than, 10,000 each that they're buying a lot of tools, hardware, electrical supplies. They might create a BPA quickly and just order from you after the fact. FEMA likes to work with BPAs. They line up their vendors, they set up BPAs in January, and then when an emergency happens, they say, okay, I need furniture contractor number 1, trucking contractor number 1, real estate contractor number 1, ice contractor number 1. The number 1s go to Katrina. Number 2s go to Charlie. Number 3s go to Isabel. So what they do is they line up their vendors, they number their BPAs, and then everybody knows what they need to deliver if they get the call. They know what to bill against if they get the call. They're ready. All they have to do is execute. Just give me the address and I can go. The money is already there, ready to go. So blanket purchase agreements are lovely when you have a GSA schedule, because all they need to do is use the terms and conditions of the GSA, come up with the pricing, put a budget together, and then every time they start running out of money, they keep refilling it back up again. Blanket purchase agreements, they're wonderful. We already mentioned task orders. Task orders are when they need a service and they're going to call you and say, I need a new service. You're up against, I'm going to put it on this particular bridge. I need a task order proposal for this particular technical task. So for example, if you're on GSA schedule and you're a furniture company and they send you a specification, a space plan, and they tell you what kind of furniture they're looking for, all you have to do is bid against that task. If you're in construction, they might have a drawing of a building and then you decide, to what that might be. If you're in IT, they might tell you, I need 4 experts that are security cleared that can work on site for us for the next year to do cybersecurity. So then you put together a task order or proposal and present it to them based on what their needs are. There's some other links here in the document that are available to you. So now I'm going to just kind of scroll on. And here's my favorite FAR that I was telling you about, FAR Rule 15.201. Early exchanges with industry, an essential part of the procurement process, are used to elicit industry participation in the planning and execution of the acquisition, especially when seeking to re-engineer business processes. The acquisition team, program manager, contracting officer, technical support, all these people remember them, should tailor the nature and extent of the technique. Early exchanges follow these particular rules. Here's the rule right here at your fingertips. I'm not saying that you throw this on someone's desk and hit them over the head with it, okay? What I'd like for you to do is to be able to use this and have it and know it by heart, just to give you some encouragement and some courage to be able to go after these opportunities and try to create these early engagements with your customers. So here it is. So exchanges of information among all interested parties are encouraged. So go get them, right? So I do want to talk a little bit about ethics and ethical behavior. When there's tough economic times, pandemics, elections, everybody is a little prickly during those days. The news is just waiting to hear about something going wrong or somebody cheating or someone going to jail. So the buyers are going to be extra careful about following protocol. And what I want you to do is consider this and just know that vendors who get it, will get it. Got it? Those who get it and get them. So as a new vendor, we need to start being really patient, persistent, compliant, understanding their ethical rules. No presents, no prizes, no raffles, no giveaways, nothing. Can you do a lunch and learn? Sure, at 10 a.m., don't bring lunch. Just present. Or ask them, what's the protocol? How much can I bring? What's within the rules? Sometimes they'll say, sure, bring us some bagels and coffee, but leave a cup and a little note saying, please put your contributions in the cup. Of course, there won't be any in there, but you're following all the protocols of that office. I'm not saying that happens every time, but typically what I do when I do a capabilities briefing or I do a webinar or something like that, what I like to do is I like to be able to make sure that I'm following the protocol of that group. And I just straight out ask them. And I kind of keep the lunch part off lunch hours. I do 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. when I come to visit. Or when we do, what's nice now is with Zoom meetings, you don't really have to worry about that part. So one of the questions I like to say is, would supplying you with this information preclude me from bidding? This is really important because sometimes they're going to call you and say, I need you to put together some ideas of what we need. Come draw our space. Come look at our space. Come write out our specifications on a white sheet of paper. And I always like to say straight out, you know, would this preclude me from bidding? Because if it does, then you need to charge them for that time. But if it doesn't preclude you from bidding, oh, no, not at all. Absolutely, you can come in. It's just getting an idea of the space and where our windows are. It's getting an idea of what our systems might need to have. We need to get an idea of what you're looking to do. If you're putting together a white paper for them, make sure you ask that question, because you want to constantly follow protocol and make sure you don't get into any trouble. There's nothing worse than giving a whole bunch of free consulting away, finding out later you can't even bid on the deal. So there's FAR 3.104 about integrity, no giving them anything. Nothing. However, you can give them ideas. You can share innovations. You can educate them. You can provide them white papers, and you can write thank you notes, which means more to them than anything else you can do for them. Thank you notes and letters of commendation. So I want to talk to you just for a moment, a little bit about blind bids. Oops, let me just get this right here so we can see it. So I have a quick question. I mean, I bet a couple of you have gotten the call on a Friday and they want you to submit a bid by Monday. So I bet you've gotten that call. I need you to come. I'm sending you this specification. Can you send me in a bid by Monday? And it's Friday. And you never heard of them before. So question number one is, how'd you find out about me? Oh, I found you on GSA. And let's say your company is in the A's. Or how'd you find out about me? I found you in SAM.gov. I found you in the dynamic small business search at the SBA. I just typed in woman-owned small business in Michigan, and that's what I got, right? Wait a minute. And I've never heard of you before, and you're over in Washington State, and the work is in Washington State, and I'm in Michigan. You need this by Monday. Yeah, and you have to have people that work here in Washington State. So you're going to work all weekend on that blind bid opportunity? So one of the things I like to just straight out say to the person is, I have a family reunion this weekend that I'm planning. Should I cancel it for you? And if you hear a long pause, you know that you are bidder number 2 or 3. I call them L2, L3. Loser 2, loser 2, loser 3. File filler. You're being asked for market purposes, and they want you to work all weekend and get it to them on Monday. That's crazy. So straight out, just tell them what your plans are on the weekend and ask them if you should cancel. My daughter's getting married. Should I cancel? Why don't you just send me a letter? I'd be happy to. But then you're going to bargain for an appointment with their end user. So if they call you for a blind bid opportunity and they actually get you on the phone and they need you now, work something out, especially if you've never met them before. What have you got to lose? You're going to lose this deal anyway. They need you for a file filler. They're looking for a sucker to fill the file that's not in Washington State. You're in Michigan. You can't even deliver on time. They just want it for the file. So why don't you just work it out? And maybe you don't do any work in Washington State. Okay, I'll give you this information. If you give me your peers here in Michigan, who your contracting officers at the Army Corps or over here, bargain for something. And you know what? They'll probably work something out. So blind bidding is a classic issue. So many companies see something on GSA. This is perfect for us. Or they get a call from the customer. They invited me. I'm so special. No, you're not. If you didn't write those specifications, stop the presses and ask probing questions of the customer. Maybe you just need a letter that says, thank you very much for the opportunity. Here's our GSA rates, but we're not going to send in the technical. She's got what she needs, but you're not wasting the whole weekend. Or maybe you're writing a proposal for another client that's actually a client that you've been focused on, that you've been working on, that you know you're going to win, and you plan on spending the weekend on that. Are you going to do some extra work on this RFI? No. No, thank you. So I had somebody in one of my classes say to me, when you talk about this, we had a client who called us and sent us something every Friday, and we responded to her every Friday. Every Friday. Can you imagine spending every Friday afternoon on this bid of this person that kept sending them opportunities for a year, and it wasn't sinking in? And I said, okay, class, this is in-person class. I said, okay, we're taking a break, everybody. And I took those two people out into the hall. And I said, I want you to call her right now and just tell her you know what she's doing. And they're like, are you kidding me? I said, what do you have to lose? You've wasted a year of Fridays for her. Call her and ask her. So they picked up the phone and called her with me there. And they said, we're in a class and our teacher is saying that we've been sending in blind bids to you for the last year because you just needed it for the file. And the lady said, she's right. And they said, well, does it make sense that we could at least come in and meet you? Talk to your team? And she said, yeah, I owe you at least that. So then 2 weeks later, they called me, and it turned out that they had a specialty that the contracting officer didn't know about, the end users didn't know about, and they started to win under the radar opportunities for their company. So don't let contracting officers wrangle you into situations that you think are perfect for you when you have no business writing that blind bid. Stop wasting time and money on blind bids. Leverage your time if you do it to either learn from the loss. Like, let's say this is one of your focused agencies that you're trying to develop relationships with, and then they call you for an opportunity. Okay, you get it. So you're going to write a couple losers for the file, but you might become one of their favorite 3, and they might do a round robin between the 3 companies. Your goal is to be one of their 3. And sometimes you're going to write a file filler. That's only when it's one of your focused agencies. When it's someone that you never heard of before, never heard of you, they're not necessarily considering you, they just need a file filler. Don't kill yourself on this. It's too painful, way too painful. So here's some actions that we like to say is break down the opportunity. Look at the timeline. Ask the customer bold questions. Find out if there's a submittal shortcut. Bargain for an appointment with the end users for future opportunities if you actually are filling the file for them. Okay, building block number 3 is one of my favorite parts of this discussion. We call it the secret embedded block for winners only. Okay, so we call it the win theme. And there was a gentleman named Dan Safford. I don't know if you've ever heard of him before. He was with a company called Proposal Works, and this guy won 75% of the time. That's what I want your win rate to be. And he had a saying, a customer-centric approach will be perceived as unique. Okay, let's put it in simple terms. You have to write exactly what they told you they wanted, customer-centric. And they're able to justify in the file why you're that much better than the other guy or closer to exactly what they were looking for. And the only way you can do it is if the customer knows you, trusts you, loves you, and you had a conversation with them about what they wanted. So we're going to take a moment and let you, for a moment, I'm looking for someone in the group that wants to role play with me a little bit. Okay. Anybody in the group who likes to cook or can cook or bake, can you step up and say hello? Unmute yourself and put on your video and say hi. Anybody here like to cook? Come on, cooks. Be brave. Bakers.
Hi,
Aaron.
Eileen. Hi, how are you? Can you hear
Hey,
me
Aaron,
fine?
how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, good
Hey,
to see you
Aaron,
too.
what do you like to bake?
Well, me and my wife bake cookies quite frequently. We make cake mix cookies.
Oh my God, yum. I love cookies. One of my favorite things is I have this cookie book that my mother had. I'm the youngest of 9. So she always had to quadruple all the
Right.
ingredients. And one Christmas, I'm not kidding you, because she was a Air Force officer's wife. We baked 1,200, I'm not kidding, dozen
That's
cookies.
amazing. Wow.
And we decorated them. I mean, she had all 9 kids around the table, and I was little. I was putting the frosting on it and then the sprinkles. It was so fun. I remember my brothers and sisters were like, oh my God, we're in a factory. But of course, the little one, I was thrilled. It was a great time.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So see how we're bonding already about cookies. You have cookies. So have you ever baked a cake before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, good. So let's say an RFP hit the streets and it just said, we want a cake. We want a cake. Everybody and their mother is going to say, well, I can bake a cake.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, this is perfect for us. But you've baked before.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So what would be the questions when you look at this RFP? If you had a chance to meet the customer 6 weeks before the bid was out,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the things you would ask your customer about the cake?
Well, I'm sure first I would start with, what flavor cake do you want? You want a vanilla cake? You want a chocolate cake? You want a red velvet cake? I guess next after that, I'd ask, how many tiers do you want on that cake? From there, probably asking like frosting, and then if it wanted decorated or not.
Right? Any general questions, like the most important question about the cake? Think about it. You have to design a cake. What would be the question about the design?
Oh, well, what's the cake for? I guess is it a birthday cake? Is it anniversary cake? Right? Yeah.
What's the occasion?
Mm-hmm.
I want you all to write that phrase down. Every time you're looking at an RFP, what's the occasion? Because if we come in with a wedding cake and it's somebody's retirement party and it's a man, it's not going to go well.
Right.
What's the occasion, everybody? If nobody knows even what it's for, what's the point of writing a proposal? But this is perfect for us. So let's keep going. There's more nuances to this cake. Mm-hmm. How many layers?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How, like you said tiers, but how many layers inside the tier?
Right.
Right? Anybody have allergies? Do we need to have a little gluten-free cupcake for somebody?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where are we delivering it?
Right.
What's the access to the place? What's the timing? Is it going to be hot and outside? We're not going to want to make an ice cream cake then, right? Is it going to be inside? What time of day? Do we have to have ways to get in? Where do you want to put it in the room?
Right.
When do you want it presented? Right? There's all these questions that start to, as a project manager, baker, right? And so before a really important occasion, Jack, if you were to hire someone to make a really special cake, let's say it's a really, really special cake. Maybe it's a giant cookie cake because it's for your wife and that's what you guys like to do together. And it looks like this humongous cookie sandwich or something. Let me just ask you, wouldn't you go from bakery to bakery and do some taste testing if it were that important to you?
Right. I'd do some research. I would shop around, figure out which cake is where I'm going to get the best value.
Right. But then, of course, the value is in the design, is in the taste, is in the final. So then let's say you put an RFP out there for we want cake, but that one company sends in the RFP that is the cake that you already tasted, that you already tried, that you already designed with the master chef.
Right.
This is the one. So we call this a win theme because everybody else is sending in their best recipes. They're sending in their great designs. But you, Jack, sat down with the client as the master baker, right? Coming in with exactly what they told you they wanted after trying you a couple times or visiting with you a couple times or having conversations. And then the little nuances like who has an allergy to this or, you know what I mean, in your proposal. Oh yeah, we know, for example, if it's an IT system, we know so-and-so likes to work on their Mac instead of their PC. So we have to have a type of software that this is going to work with their Mac when they're on the road, right? Or whatever it might be. You have to deal with those little nuanced things they warned you about that everybody else is guessing.
Right.
So
Right.
thank you very much, Jack, for your participation. I appreciate you helping me out. My master chef.
Absolutely.
I can't wait.
Problem.
Send me a picture of your cookie cakes.
Oh, will do.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I want you to start thinking about in your business, everybody, think about if you had an opportunity to interview your client before the bid came out, what would the questions have been that you would ask them so that you are making sure that you know those nuanced items? We call those ingredients the win theme. It's not just one. It's a combination of things that you've put together that makes your solution unique to their need. You're mirroring and telling them exactly what they told you they wanted. And everybody else is guessing, right? So what we need to do is the win theme questions that you need to ask yourself are, first of all, who are the evaluators? Do I know them? What are their desired results of the project? How did we find out about this information? Was it in a private conversation or is it in the RFP? Was it on the phone, in a Zoom meeting, at a trade show? Did they take you on a walk and tell you what their nuanced situation was? And then what you're going to do in this action is start filling in, we are the only company who makes cookie cakes. We're the only company that makes specialty cookie cake that has agile software, but with subject matter experts with over 10 years experience in security clearance. See, there might be a couple nuanced items. So from the customer's perspective, what are they afraid of going wrong? So we need to be able to also say in our win theme, we're the only company who does cookie cakes and have been doing it for 30 years. So we've mastered being able to deliver them on time, within budget, in exactly that shape that you wanted, right? So we need to address, as a team, this is roundtable. This isn't responding to the RFP. This is discussing among your team before you bid, trying to pull out of your sales team members what they heard in the field. What are they afraid of going wrong? Interview your salespeople to get this information out. And then how are we going to respond to that? We're the only company who's been baking cookie cakes for 30 years or longer. Right? And so the next question is, what's the customer's perceived solution? What's their solution? Well, Jack told me that he and his wife, they love to make cookie cakes. So their perceived solution is they'd like it to be a chocolate chip cookie cake with ice cream in the middle. So it's got to look like a chocolate chip cookie, but then look like a giant cookie sandwich. And they've been able to master getting that ice cream just so that it doesn't melt before it's cut for everybody in the room. So they're already telling us what they want and how they've solved it, and we've been able to solve it as well. So figure out what your customers, what their perceived solution is. Here's another reason why, as a proposal writer, I want to ask my salespeople to make sure we know this answer is find out what the customer told you they wanted, how they think they would solve the problem. Here's why. If your customer, the end user, is using words or phrases in that answer that sounds like something your competitor offers, you know your competitor has had their ear for a while. So your salesperson hopefully has changed their perceived solution to what you're offering, changed it, and they're okay with ours being equal, Coke, Pepsi kind of thing. Or ours is better for a reason. They originally came to me and they wanted this solution, but we came back and said, actually there's a new way to do that. And they went, oh, that sounds even better. So then you already know we've got our competitor beat because they first thought that solution was good, but now they're going to go with ours. So this is, again, a conversation. It's a tool that you're going to be able to use to get out of your salespeople information. And again, if you have these early conversations and the bid's not out yet, and you know it's coming, you can send your salespeople back out to find out this information. Are there any pre-sellers? If so, what are we different than what they're doing? Have we considered working as a teaming partner with the incumbent? If so, we have to find the incumbent. We have to talk to the incumbent. We have to show them that, sure, we all do these same things, but this one thing we do a little better or different. Let's fill out your capabilities in your proposal, right? So we need to either ask the customer who the current incumbent is, or we need to ask around to find out. We could use USA Spending to try to find out using keywords. We could use FPDS using keywords, or we can use the new SAM.gov contract award information and pull that out to try to find the incumbents utilizing keywords from the opportunity. So the definition of a win theme is a combination of elements, ingredients added together. That gives you enough extra points in the evaluation to justify choosing you over anybody else. That's why I keep saying, what do we have that's unique to anybody else? And let me just say to you, I want you to note this. If you offer services and you have subject matter experts that are really good at what they do, and the end users on site at the base, at the agency, have met your subject matter experts, and your subject matter expert is going to be the program or project manager for this deal, right? And the customer told you, I want to work with Joe, your subject matter expert. Joe is your win theme because you're the only company who has Joe on your team. So not only are you going to put Joe everywhere in almost all the headlines of the proposal, you're going to mention Joe over and over and over again, but you're also going to incorporate Joe's background, their resume, their expertise, their clearances, anything that they care about Joe being the subject matter expert. You're the only company. And you're going to include your letter from Joe, that letter that you are the only company that they're employed to, that they're not going to just flip to another vendor. So they like to sometimes see those letters. Joe might be your win theme. So if you offer services, it might be wrapped around your people, your specific people on your team. So win themes. Let me just go back to this. So we talked a little bit about the idea of a win theme. So what I'd like you to do, one of your actions, is to go back through some of the bids you've actually won and try to discover what was the win theme. Why did you win? It's not always price. It might be the exact project they told you they wanted early on. Maybe you wrote the specs and everybody else bid against it, right? And then where did you put the win theme? My hope is the win theme shows up in the executive summary, in that 5-paragraph document before the proposal begins. The executive, that win theme is right there out front, and then you sprinkle it throughout the proposal so that the evaluation committee, if they break it apart, it's kind of hitting over and over and over again why you over everybody else. Remember, we're the only ones who have or do. Okay, so we're just going to scroll on to the next building blocks, which is, again, one of my favorite building blocks, which is the bid no bid decision. So the bid no bid decision is something that I say like voting in Chicago, early and often. You got to do it over and over again. Just don't do it once. You need to do it not only maybe 6 months before the bid comes out, 3 weeks before the bid comes out, when the bid comes out. After the bid comes out, if they have amendments or changes, you got to go back to that bid. Why are we bidding again? Big question. Why are we bidding on this? Why are we bidding on this? Why? Why? So the first thing I want you to start thinking about is, what has it been costing you to write proposals that you've lost? This is a painful exercise. I want you to go through some of the bids that were public RFPs. How many people were involved? How many days, number of hours, what was the rate on basically that you were paying people, or maybe they were salespeople not selling. So you were losing money on future sales opportunities because the salesperson was working on a proposal. So also that's the direct and the production costs, the direct proposal costs, but let's add in the lost selling time, the lost time with family and friends. How many times are proposals? This whole CIOSP4 came out over Memorial Day weekend, and the Q&A was on Tuesday after Memorial Day. Everybody went ballistic on that. I was just laughing hysterically. So typical of the government, because that's a way to eliminate the paperwork for them. If they put it, out on Thanksgiving Eve, Wednesday, and it's due Monday, that just eliminates most of the proposal people, because they're going to have Thanksgiving holiday rather than write this bid. They're famous for putting things around holidays and creating short deadlines. So you also need to look at, that lost time that your team is having from their family, because they're dedicating after hours, weekends, evenings, and they're missing sporting events, school plays, concerts. So it can be very demoralizing for a team that puts in a month of their time, 4 or 5 people, and kill themselves to write a proposal that ends up losing on a technicality. That's why the bid, no bid process is so incredibly important. Let me just tell you that a 30-day bid, a bid due in 30 days, and you have 4 people involved, if you multiplied that by $100 an hour, it's $64,000. $64K. So I want you to start thinking about $64K. If you're writing a blind bid, you have a 5% chance of winning it. So I'm not saying write 20 bids and one you might win, because it doesn't work that way. It's 5% each time, which means your percentage chance is very low. Would you throw $64,000 at a slot machine with a 5% win rate? Then why are you investing your weekends and evenings and selling time to a loser bid? So we need to start getting really super smart about our time. And I have a new phrase for you, and I want you to put it on the refrigerator at home. Only write winners. And what I mean by that is only write proposals at the agencies that you're developing relationships with, that you know the people on the inside, that you really have not that it's perfect for us and is someone you've never met. Now, I know for IDIQs, those are public bids, and you're hoping to do things that are like Polaris and Big Mac and the new CIOSP4. You might be listening to this later. It might be Seaport Next Generation down the road for onboarding, or other GWACs. If it's an IDIQ, you're bidding because you're hoping to get the opportunity for the task orders. So it's a big effort to hope to be invited to the table for task orders. But what if it's a contract vehicle that the agencies that you're focused on don't even use? Why are you bidding on that? So this bid, no bid proposal concept is very, very important. In fact, if you have a bid, no bid opportunity for a GSA Schedule E-buy opportunity, an RFQ or a task order, so it's a smaller group of people, and they only need 3 bids. The timing is less than 14 days. It's going to go faster. It's less number of pages, maybe just pricing, technical, 3 past performances, and done. So that might be a little faster, but you're still investing a weekend on it. You're still investing personal time on it. So I want you to go back to old proposals and take a look at how much it cost your company to write some of these. It's much more expensive doing an RFP versus an RFQ. Much less expensive. That's why having an IDIQ makes things a little easier. When you have a bid no bid decision, I want you to get ownership and management involved, the project manager on your team, salespeople, proposal manager. Now, some of you, you own your own business. So you're looking at yourself in the mirror, talking to all four personalities. Okay, owner, talk to the salesperson, talk to the, the proposal manager and the project manager, you, and you, right? Get everybody in a room and have a sit down or get on Zoom or have a conference call and take the time to go through the bid no bid decision. Here's why. You bring sales together with project managers and the salesperson is arguing with the project manager. We can do it. Salesperson is going to be like, we can do it. Project manager, before. I don't even know anything about this project. How in the world can I write a technical when I don't know anything about it? That's impossible. When you see them fighting, right there, it's a no-go. To me, as an owner, no-go. Why? Because you're going to write a loser that you're going to be, first of all, herding cats when it comes to your project team to write this because they don't know what to say. They're the master chef that doesn't know the ingredients. They never met the end user. So salespeople will start to realize they need to get the project team member, your subject matter experts in those meetings, those early sales meetings, those early innovative conversations, those early problem solving, those white paper times, the specification times. They need to start involving program and project managers on your side, your subject matter experts on the sales process. So then, let's say your team comes together on an opportunity. Sales says, this is ours. Project manager, I know their end user. I went to college with them. They know I'm the best cookie cake maker in the world. I'm really good at this, right? Or I'm good at this programming language. We speak the same language. We know each other. They trust me. Or they used me before when I worked for so-and-so. They love me. And I know exactly what they need, what they told me in Vulcan poetry, the technical language and programming. They told me exactly what they wanted. I got this. If you have sales and project managers together saying we've got this, you're already leaning, that meter of yes is starting to go toward a yes. Yes. Right? Versus no. But still, as a project or proposal manager, we need to go through some specific questions. So we've given you a template here. First of all, who uncovered the opportunity and where did they find it? If someone just said, I found this on the contract opportunities in SAM.gov and it's due next week, I'm going to go, is this one of our agencies we're focused on? No, but it's perfect for us. Okay, well, tell me who you know. Tell me the story. I like to say as a proposal manager, I ask my salespeople, give me the story. And they go, the story is I downloaded this from SAM.gov. And they don't have anything else, so no go. But if suddenly they start saying, oh yeah, a couple months ago I met with so-and-so and they told me that we needed XYZ, and I met with another person, their stakeholder, and they want to work with us because, we did some deliveries last year and they were happy. There's story behind it. We've been there, we've worked with them, they like us, or we've presented to them, we've written white papers. If they have stories behind this stuff and they can name names and roles and people and what they do, this is juicy information. Also, the timing of it. If your salesperson says, it's not coming out yet, we're not even at RFI stage, this is coming. So let's do a bid no bid process now so that it's coming up. So that, if the salesperson comes forward, let's do bid no bid to see what we know and what we're missing, because your salesperson now, I'm going to call them a new person now. They're your reporter, your proposal managers, you're the editor of the proposal. Now your salesperson's the reporter, getting the who, what, where, when, why, how. They don't have a story. You have no bid to write. Ever. What's there to do? How can you respond to this if you don't know the inside scoop? So challenge your salespeople and your project manager to give you the answers to these questions. When is the bid coming out? And if it's already out, when is it due? Who are the contacts we know personally at the customer site? Might they be on the evaluation committee? And if so, would they vote for us or against us? Do they like our competitor instead of us? You know, one time I went in to see a very important stakeholder at one of my government customer level. And I just asked them, you know, who they liked working with. And they didn't say anything. They just opened up a golf umbrella. I'm not kidding you, a golf umbrella with the company's logo on it. And they started spinning it. Oh, I don't know. So listen to the little hints that they're giving you on who they prefer or who they've worked with in the past. Do we have any ideas on who at the customer site developed the specifications? Who drove them? Who had influence on them? Who do we know who has a relationship with the customer? I want to stop there for a moment. I call this person the fox. So let's just say you were working at, I'm just throwing it out there. Let's say you were working at the VA at their Technology Acquisition Center, and you were working with Tony Owens over there. I'm not saying this is a true story, but we're just going to throw that out there. You're working with them. You've actually done some work with them, and they've been really, really happy. And then let's say that the Austin Technology Acquisition Center in Texas needs what you do. And Tony said, hey, go over to the Austin office. They're going to need some XYZ, which is what you're good at. Why don't you go talk to the project manager, the program manager, so-and-so, and see what their needs are. So let's say they recommended you over, and you go over and you start talking to the customer in Austin. But now Tony has invested in you because Tony has recommended you. So Tony, because he's not part of the decision process, Tony might be able to give you feedback on how that went with that other customer in your first meetings, or in what you were thinking. You know, they did a taste test. They tried your cake. They didn't like it. Tony can tell you, yeah, they thought it was okay, but I think you need to put another layer on it. Okay, let me go back in and show you what some other ideas that I have for you. I call this the fox. Someone on the inside who is your champion, who introduced you to another group. They're not part of the decision, but they recommended you, and they want you to be successful. So they might give you feedback on what was shared with them by that end user team. I'm not talking at proposal time. Have you noticed? This is all happening months before the bid is out. So if you have a fox, you're in a pretty good position because you're getting some great feedback on how you're doing. Is there an existing contract vehicle, and who's the incumbent? So big question is are they going to use GSA? Are they going to use a GWAC? Are they going to recompete their IDIQ? Do you have that contract vehicle, or do you need to find a teaming partner? If you need to find a teaming partner, is it an incumbent, someone who's already there? If they have an incumbent, are they happy with the incumbent? Are they going to use the incumbent again? Let's say it's an 8A contract and the incumbent is graduating from the 8A program, but they love the incumbent and you're an 8A company. Maybe teaming with the incumbent and you be the 8A and they be your sub. You do 51, they do 49. Client's happy because they have the same people, but the paperwork looks good because they're still working with an 8A company, you see? So can the incumbent bid? Is this going to be an open bid that anybody can bid on? You know, large business, small business, anybody? Or is it going to be a set aside? Do we meet the set aside? What other competitors have your customer been talking to? Let me just tell you, they hedge their bets. They might tell you they want you, but they probably told 2 others they want them too. So assume your competitors are coming to the table. If you assume they're coming, then you're going to write a stronger proposal, thinking that they might show up last minute. So have we discussed the requirement with them? If so, how? Did we just learn about the requirement from the bid, or have we actually helped drive the specifications? And some people say, are we allowed to drive? Well, I can tell you, I was recently in a meeting. It was a radio show, a public one, where a gentleman that was a top salesperson at CACI, we all know them, some people call him khaki, but he told us they like to be called CACI. And he said something very revealing. He said, stop following opportunities. You have to drive them. You have to drive them. So one of the questions might be, are we in the driver's seat? Did we drive this opportunity? So how did we discuss the requirement with the client? Oh, we never discussed it with them, so we're guessing. That's going to be tough to bid. It's also going to be really tough to win and make money if we're guessing. We could lose a lot of money if we misquote what's necessary and we win. Okay, so have we discussed the requirement with the customer and help them understand their needs and solution? And if so, how? What's the win theme? Those secret ingredients that we only have. We have Joe on our team. We know how many layers on that cake. We know the occasion. We know how it needs to be delivered. We know they want it shaped like a cookie with ice cream in the middle. What is the customer's fear? And really have a round table with the team. Because if they've never worked with you before, the number one fear is they've never worked with you before. So you have to find a way to address the fear and then offer yourselves as a safe bet. Find a way to offer yourselves as a safe bet and prove it. What's the true value of this opportunity? Why are we even pursuing it? What's the reason the customer would choose us? Hopefully it's the same win theme because they told you they wanted. And again, we have the dollar amount so you can figure out the amount of time. What type of bid is it? Public RFP, an IDIQ, a task order, a GSA. Is it quickie? Is it easy? Is it going to take us 8 hours? Is it going to take us a month and completely out of the selling pocket? What's the budget? Will we make money? And then my favorite one makes the team go through all the other questions all over again. Are these answers hopeful? Are we telling ourselves stories? Are they based on the truth? Facts. So this bid decision process needs to happen early and often. And one of the things I like to do is when my outside team, Judy was talking about the roofing company I was working with, we captured $65 million in 18 months. Now I had 45 locations out there calling on the feds. I had one proposal writer. So we could only write winners. We had to be really picky about what proposals we were going to write because we only had one person to put it together. Okay. So whenever a salesperson or a project manager came to us with a roofing opportunity and they said, this one's perfect for us. This is what we do. That's classic. I come back with, let's get out the bid no bid process. Let's spend about 20 minutes filling it in together. And they go, well, I don't have time for that. And then I come back and okay, wait a minute. You want us to spend 30 days on a proposal and you don't have 20 minutes to go through the bid no bid decision? Why I do that is salespeople don't want to be called out for knowing nothing about the customer. But this is exactly what we need to do. And owners, when we're by ourselves and we're looking at these opportunities, we have to challenge ourselves. If we don't know anything about the customer, don't bid. Don't bid. You're writing hopeful, wishful proposals. Stop. It's demoralizing to write a loser and kill yourself. Only fill files with losers at the agencies you focused on for the last few years and you're trying to get in and you want to be one of their 3 favorites. Sometimes you have to write 1 or 2 losers to get in, right? So that's worth it. But if it's something random you saw publicly, just don't do this to yourself. So the bid no bid decision. The next little tool that we're about to share with you, let's just say the bid is a go. We're going for it, but the bid's not out yet. So you're waiting for it to come in. It's excruciating because you want to go for it. Everybody's waiting for it to come out on SAM.gov or on GSA eBuy. Where is it? Where is it? You have something you need to be doing instead. Instead of waiting and watching, of course you're going to check for it. You need to start positioning your proposal process and your win themes. So this is a really helpful tool for proposal managers and salespeople that know it's coming, but what we're trying to do is find our weak points and see if we can fix them and fill them before the bid comes out and ask questions about them before the bid comes out. Because the minute the bid comes out, gates are closed, can't talk to you anymore. So This little tool has customer need. How did we find out? What's unique about us? And where would we put it in the proposal? Usually a proposal has an executive summary, pricing, technical, and management plan. Okay? And management plan on RFQs usually don't exist. It's when you do the RFPs for a management plan. But most of the time, again, executive summary, pricing, technical are the big ones. Okay? So what I want you to do before the bid comes out is grab this spreadsheet and create customer needs and write down every little nuance of what you think the customer is going to need. In the next column, how did you find out about those needs? And if it says customer meeting, walkthrough, site visit, Zoom meeting, sidebar conversation, phone call, text, if they're all personal, then you're getting kernels of win theme information. They want you. But if it's all in the RFP, everybody's seeing that stuff. Now, the third column is, what are we going to do about that thing they told us they needed? What's unique about us? So let's say, for example, delivery by the 20th. They told us in the customer, we deliver in 2 days, so that's no problem. Okay. Or customer need. They want Joe as the project manager. How did we find out? They told us straight out, bring Joe in on this project. What's unique about us? Joe. We have Joe as our team member. Where are we going to put that? We're going to put it in the executive summary. We're going to put it in the technical. We're going to put Joe in the headlines everywhere. So this is a tool that you can use to start bubbling up what you think they're going to be asking for. I use this as a furniture opportunity as an example. You know, they wanted Hayworth. They told us on a site visit. We're the only dealer who in Illinois who offers Hayworth furniture in 2 business days, right? And we're able to start to formulate that win theme. So take this tool, this template, and you'll have tools and templates at the back of this book. Take this tool, take out everything and start listing what you think the customer is going to be asking you for: capabilities, people, win themes, tasks. How did you find out? What are you going to offer that's unique? And where are you going to put in the proposal? This allows a proposal manager to start to formulate where this thing is going. And it gives the salesperson a chance. If there's a hole, let's say, for example, they say, we must have security cleared people, and we don't have security cleared people. Well, we got to fill that gap really fast. And since the bid isn't out yet, we have time to hire people, get resumes, whatever it might take. It also helps you identify shortcomings and get those fulfilled. Find a teaming partner, go get the solution, go get the product that they wanted, get a dealership agreement with someone to get the whatever product you need to add to the thing that they want. So it's a really nice little tool. The evaluation committee, as we talked about earlier, are probably going to be your end users, stakeholders, their employees, the levelers, and might be a competitor sitting in there. So why do they have evaluation committee people when we're actually going to bid and we're going to send it in? Because what happens is why they want the pricing separate from the technical is the pricing gets peeled away. They want the technical team just to read the technical and the management plan and grade them without looking at rates. They're doing that because they have to, not because they want to and they love doing it. They do it because the FAR tells them they have to. So they need to fend off the losers by showing the losers what their low grades were or how they missed. So if you lost a deal based on you didn't understand the scope of work or you were marginally qualified, that's the evaluation committee basically saying, we didn't know who you were. We didn't know you. They're doing it because they need to fill the file and defend the winner. So it depends on how they do it, but basically they get the technical, they break it apart. That's why in your executive summary, you need to put some of the key win theme information in there as to why we're bidding and what's unique about us. But then in the technical, you need to really dig in and prove all that stuff so that the technical people can back it and defend why they chose you. They need a defendable proposal. So I just want to share with you, they tend to cringe at a few things. They hate overblown statements. Best in breed, world class. That's not provable or quantifiable. It's just words. Okay, so unsubstantiated claims don't work for them. Fancy words. There's one word I don't really like. When I read it, I find it really condescending. Hence. Just use the word therefore. Hence is very, I don't know, comic book store guy. Remember that guy from The Simpsons? Hence, blah, 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 blah. It just sounds flippant and condescending. So listen to your tone in your proposals. One time I was editing someone's proposal, and sometimes in the proposal, they ask you the same question in different parts. And some people, proposal writers, get really frustrated by that because they answered it before. Well, the reason why they're doing it is they're breaking the proposals apart. So this group is reading this piece and that group is reading that piece. Well, in this particular proposal I was reading, the writer wrote, again, as stated in blah, blah, blah section. It sounded so rude. What I say is when you see repeat questions, answer it exactly consistent to the way you said it before. Just give the exact same answer. If it needs to be a summarized version of it, stick with it. But don't throw the, as we said before, or again. Listen to your tone. Watch your tone. Telling them what they should have asked for rather than what they asked for, you're going to get thrown out right away. I had a particular vendor say, review our proposal that we lost. They wanted me to look at their proposal, why they lost. And they said, we'd like you to read our proposal and tell us why we lost. Because the client told us why we lost, but we'd like for you to review it and see if you said the same thing. And on the executive summary, they put a red box. It was a design company. It was a construction design company. They put a red box on page 1 saying what the client should have asked for and how the pricing of this project would be much higher. And I read page 1. I just circled that with a red pen and sent it back. I'm like, I don't need to this is why you lost. And they said, when we were in the evaluation, when they did the debrief after, they beat us up because we were totally insulting their internal designers on what they wanted to accomplish. And they were like, why would you do this to us? You know, you should have known what we wanted. And to tell us that we should have asked for something else, you're out, right? So sometimes it's really easy. Too much, too many pages, disorganized, impossible to read proposals, impossible to evaluate or follow. What they're looking for is for you to meet the proposal, give them exactly what they told you they wanted, no more, no less. Stick with exactly what they gave you so that they can compare apples to apples to apples. If yours is all in a different order or present something completely different and you're trying to sell them something different than what they asked for, it's too late. You should have done that months before. So these are some things that they don't really like is these kind of things. The overblown statements, they giggle behind closed doors. So just some thoughts here. The goal here when we get our stuff into the evaluation committee is we're trying to give them a proposal that's punchy. I'm not saying punchy like cutesy punchy, like a punch list. Hits everything according to what they asked for. Punch, 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 check, check, check. Punchy, logical, clear, concise, organized. That's how we want our proposal to be, so that they can quickly evaluate it. And the ultimate goal is first to get it past the contracting specialist. The contracting specialist is making sure all the parts and pieces, all the number of pages, the font sizes are right, it was delivered on time, properly, in the right format, in the right files, easy to separate. Then it gets you want to get into the evaluation committee. And what your goal is to be among the top 3 in the evaluation. So it's a process of elimination for them. You want to keep making the cut, making the cut, making the cut. And you can do that if your proposal is punchy, logical, clear, concise, organized, and features that win theme. Why us over anybody else? That makes us unique, because we know the recipe, we have the ingredients, which is exactly the story you told us. And we're just simply repeating it back to you in a very organized fashion that you can defend when you award us this contract. So here we are at the end of part 1, and I'd like to throw it back to Judy, and maybe we have some Q&A time. I think we have a few minutes.
We sure do. And it would be absolutely great to hear, first of all, put up a hand or just speak up for a second if you know you've got a question that you would like to ask. Anybody got something that's just burning that you really, really want to ask before we wrap part 1? Speak now.
This is Kathy. I have a question.
Okay.
No, just real quick. With the FAR clauses, I mean, you get these statements of works or the PWS, and there's 30 FAR clauses listed. Is this just something you memorize every time, or do you have to look each one up, or especially when you're awarded the contract? I don't know if you have any advice or anything along those lines, because it's easy to miss one. You know, I know that it's happened to somebody else in the past, but at the same time, there's so many of them, and how do you address them?
So for me, the one thing is, in a lot of times when you start responding, Kathy, to, first of all, thank you for your question. A lot of times the FAR clauses are the same in your industry. So there might be FAR clauses tied to delivery timeframes or security clearance or being CMMC qualified. There might be certain things that are in proposals in IT contracts that are different for an environmental contract. So first of all, there might be different FAR clauses that show up, but you're going to start seeing them over and over and over again. You're going to go, oh, there's that one. I agree to it, and you just move on. So the first thing is that, yes, they tend to be the same based on that particular agency over and over again. But what I would suggest that you do, Kathy, is consider having on your team a phone call away someone who's a great person, who's a contracts administrator who might have used to be a contracting officer, or that might have maybe even do audits for, you know, that knows DCMA rules or anything like that. I would say have someone on your team that's a phone call away that you can have them clarify a FAR rule that you don't understand and put it in plain English to you. There are plenty of those experts around, Kathy, but
Eileen and I both
would
know
just
them
say
if you've got
it's
somebody
early
in
enough.
mind.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judy.
That's okay.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, Eileen and I both have some people on tap in our Rolodex. For sure, you want to make, and you may end up paying a couple $100, and it's a great investment. You're going to learn alongside this person. So audition one. And so if you need a referral, you can ask me or ask Eileen, and we may have a couple of suggestions for you. Audition them and make sure you're getting good value for money. You'll learn from them each time. And it's absolutely critical that don't sign up for things you haven't read. So you must read the stuff. It gets easier, and it can seem really oppressive at first. It's a learning curve. It's your investment, but you have to do it to stay safe.
Exactly. I think that's my example in the past. It was a long time ago, but somebody didn't read the FAR clause and there was an issue, you know. So, but there's so many of them a lot of times listed on these contracts. So I agree. A lot of them could probably be repeats, and maybe just keep an Excel spreadsheet or something on those. But I was just curious if it's something that's kind of, you know, you think about just, I don't have time to look those up. I'm responding to the proposal. And when you get the statement of work, it's something that you really need to follow. So just
if it's not you, then you've got to have somebody with the green eye shades just going through and checking them off, because this stuff will bite you if you don't. Anybody else got, exactly. We got about another.
Green eye shades. I love that picture, Judy.
Anybody else got a question that you're just burning to get an answer to? Remember that as we started, I said at the end, I was going to finish up each section by saying, what one thing do you commit to trying today? So I'd love to go around the room here of the things, the ideas that you've gotten in the last couple of hours. What's standing out for you as, oh, yeah, your aha moment? What's sticking up for you?
I'm happy to start again if you want. This is,
Please.
I don't know, to me, I like the example of putting out the fires in California, using them for the source of sod. It just kind of made that's why they're doing it. The example was really good. So I know that's little, but I appreciated it. Thank you.
Great. Jack, what sticks it for you?
Right, absolutely. It was on page 21 of the workbook that you were going through. It was the proposal strategy template. We currently have a proposal that we're waiting for an RFQ to come out for, and I'm very excited to walk through this exercise and pick out exactly what the customer needs and try to figure out where I'm going to plop it into my proposal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Who else has got an aha, a thing that you've got, a thing you are going to be sure to do based on what you learned? Fania,
Yeah.
Kent?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll tell you what, I like what Jack had to say there, but I think for me, it was probably dealing with blind bids. I mean, there's also the costs associated with it, but I think more specifically, how do you increase your odds of success in walking through those couple of questions and also reflecting about some of the things that we've done? I can see how this is incredibly helpful. So that was kind of a nice aha moment there.
Excellent. Fania?
For me, just being more intentional about the opportunities that I pursue. I like the ideas of going through because I don't do that currently. Mm-hmm. I see it. I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to go after this one. I don't have a list of checkpoints that I go off, say, okay, we should pursue this. So I'm going to be more intentional. I actually really enjoy that part.
Wonderful. Anybody else got a thing that sticks out for you, an aha, a thing you commit to doing?
Just from our side, we have an opportunity where it is time to revisit the bid no bid criteria. So that'll be a good next step for us.
Perfect. Emily, I have something else that I can give you. So write to me after, and I've got a bit of a toolkit I can share.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yep. So,
Judy, can you please do that with me as well, if that's okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't know that it was an aha moment because we've been working with Eileen for a while, but I have to keep reminding myself that it's going to take a while to get this going because I keep wanting, I'm not the bid person. I'm not the one who puts them out. Sometimes I am, but I'm the owner. And patience is challenging when you're small and putting a lot into trying to get into federal bidding and putting a lot out and not getting a whole lot of responses right away. You have to wait for the right ones, and that's frustrating but understandable.
Well, if you have a certain number of hours to invest in the lonely fun of writing a proposal versus wooing real humans, some people would rather stay behind the screen and just write proposals all day long. I get that. But building relationships with real federal humans has a huge return, shows a huge return on your investment. We only got so many hours in the day. That investment in building relationships is always well placed. Eileen, thank you for an outstanding part one. We will see everybody back at, we'll do just do a little check-in at 5 minutes to 9 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday morning. And we'll be there, get all ready for part two. So we'll see you on part two. Thank you all so much for being here. And please, you can contact Eileen at 312-636-5381, EileenKentStevens@gmail.com. If you've got additional questions, connect with each of us on LinkedIn, and we'll see you back in part two.